What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel. And what a fabulous weekend of FA Cup football we've all been treated to. Yesterday's lunchtime kickoff, just as it looked like Wolverhampton Wanderers had booked their place in the semi-final. And in the dying minutes of the game, Coventry not only drew level, but somehow managed to win. Then later in the day, Manchester City breezed past a lacklustre Newcastle who seemed unwilling and unable to press and gain possession. They barely broke a sweat, to be fair. Then today, just when it looked like Leicester might upset all the odds, coming from 2-0 down to level the game, a controversy in the end with a penalty that wasn't given, a red card. But Chelsea, the billionaire bottle jobs of Chelsea, booked another semi-final this season. Potentially their last chance to make something good happen out of a season that has been incredibly disappointing, I'm sure, for them. Finally, Manchester United somehow overcoming their arch rivals and denying Jurgen Klopp one final Wembley appearance and a possible quadruple. So we have our semi-finals. Man City take on Chelsea, what promises to be a thrilling contest between two of the biggest spending clubs in British football history, and Manchester United against plucky Coventry. Is there any chance that the final is going to be anything but Man City versus Manchester United again? And will Manchester turn up this time? But after all of this excitement on the pitch, tomorrow what we face is a decision on Nottingham Forest's profit and sustainability breaches that could see Nottingham Forest in the throes of a relegation battle with points deducted, which could have a material effect on how their season goes. And why? I'm going to say some things now which a lot of you are not going to agree with, and I welcome your opinions and I'd love to have a debate with you about it, so get in the comments. But tomorrow, I think we're going to see Nottingham Forest fall foul of regulations which many of us are hoping affect Manchester City in the long run as well. Just before I do anything else, I just want to say this would be an ideal spot for you to click like. We are inching ever closer to 1,000 subscribers, which is a huge landmark. So if you want to be a subscriber with a number under 4 digits, get involved right now and click like. Breaches of financial fair play, as it was, or as is now known, profit and sustainability. But for Nottingham Forest, what this essentially boils down to is their sale of Brennan Johnson. Had they sold Brennan Johnson for slightly less money before the deadline, they could have probably avoided any censure at all tomorrow. But their decision to hold on to him to get more money for him may end up costing them points, and I don't understand the logic of it. And it makes me want to talk about what the purpose of profit and sustainability is at all. Because since February last year, all I've heard is people saying that Manchester City are financially doping, that they've schemed and manipulated the system in order to achieve their success. These 115 charges that everybody talks about. And in that conversation about Manchester City's financial doping, it's kind of taken for granted that what they've achieved on the pitch is somehow related to what they've done off the field. But is it as simple as that? If you take a look at these 115 charges levelled against Manchester City, they run from 2009 to 2018, which is a while ago now. One huge block of these charges pertains to the fact that Manchester City apparently paid their manager Mancini more than they said they did. Does that mean that all of the success that Pep Guardiola's had since then is sullied somehow? Probably not. Another block of the charges is that they haven't been open about their expenses. And the further accusations that they have pretended, that they have manipulated their sponsorship deals above market value so that they were able to spend more than they should ethically have been allowed to. But who cares? Hasn't this always been the case in football? Not just when Roman Abramovich came along and spent money and took Ashley Cole off Arsenal and any player he wanted in order to achieve success. These rules didn't stop Chelsea then. They didn't stop Jack Walker's Blackburn from winning the Premier League when they went and spent lavishly because somebody decided to bankroll Blackburn's future. And Manchester United's dominance based on their huge commercial success because they have such a large fan base. Was that the only reason that they were successful? Well, there are enough examples of teams that have spent more money than Manchester City and not achieved what they have. I really want to see Manchester City stopped. I'm sure you do as well. But the idea that we're all clinging to some hope that Manchester City are going to be stripped of titles. We're not going to have a parade for last season if Manchester City are stripped of the title. Arsenal didn't lose the title last season because Manchester City were spending more money than them. We could have beaten Brighton and we could have beaten Nottingham Forest and Southampton, and then it would have been immaterial who had the biggest budget. As it stands, the highest wage bill in the Premier League is not Manchester City. When people talk about the plucky underdogs, Man United beating Liverpool, they overlook the fact that Manchester United spend more on their squad than Liverpool do. If there is an underdog in that game, it probably should have been Liverpool. But they're not spending pennies. They have one of the highest wage bills over the last 8 years as well. The profit and sustainability rules are being held up as a way to balance it out, to level the playing field, to prevent mega-rich teams from spending what they want. And in the January transfer window, what we saw is a real reticence from all of these clubs to spend any money so they could stay within these weird rules. The essence of the profit and sustainability rules is to prevent teams from going bust. Is there any one of you out there that thinks that Saudi Arabian-backed Newcastle are in danger of going bust? That Abu Dhabi-owned Manchester City could have such a bad performance on the pitch or be so poorly run or spend so much money that they're ever going to go bust. These teams are never going to go bust. Sustainability is not an issue if you're backed by an oil-rich state. And the other truth about this is that spending money in of itself does not win you leagues. Otherwise, everyone would be saying Chelsea are going to batter Man City, and they're not. They'd be doing well to get into the top half of the table this season. This semi-final run is probably their only chance of getting into Europe despite spending $1 billion. Spending money is not enough on its own, or Jack Walker's Blackburn wouldn't have won one Premier League. They would have won a host of them. Teams have spent money like Paris Saint-Germain and not achieved. Money in of itself is not enough. And any idea that Manchester City could be relegated or stripped of their titles is ridiculous. You and I as Arsenal fans, or if you're watching this as a Liverpool fan, or anyone else who had the displeasure of coming behind Manchester City despite amazing performances, must in your heart know that it isn't just because they spent more money. Pep Guardiola is arguably, or actually not arguably, I would take this up with anyone. Pep Guardiola is the greatest manager that's ever graced the Premier League. He's revolutionised so much about football. He's got a team of players who play with ruthless efficiency, and it's not always interesting or exciting to watch. But they intimidate the life out of teams like Newcastle. And Newcastle are one of the richest clubs in the world. Profit and sustainability isn't just affecting these clubs in the January transfer window, because the real losers of a January transfer window, where the world's richest clubs don't spend any money, are the teams who would have made money selling them players. This is how the ecosystem of football works. Very rich teams come along and nick your players. You take that money and invest it in other players, and hopefully you have a Brentford-style success or a Brighton-style success. And it bankrolls new stadiums and new investment in infrastructure. If we stop the big clubs spending, it doesn't affect them. I don't know what we're hoping for. The fact that Manchester City have been charged with 115 charges which relate to possibly doctoring the sponsorship, possibly paying Mancini more than they said they did, possibly not cooperating enough with the Premier League, who demand that they open their books. Manchester City's legal team have wrapped this up for so long, and they will continue to. But I really hope that they're proven innocent. And I really hope there is a route to tip re-examination of what we're doing in football. Because there will always be bigger clubs. There will always be financial behemoths. And if you're so naive that you think that just money is enough in football, explain Coventry. Explain what they're doing in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Explain what Arsenal are doing near the top when we haven't had the money to spend on players that teams like Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool, Man City have had in the last 5 years. Tottenham are London's richest club. How much good is it doing them? There is so much more to football than off-the-field finances. And I think this constant detraction from what Manchester City have achieved by talking about financial doping overlooks some key facts. They haven't been bribing refs. They haven't been guilty of cheating on the pitch. What they've achieved on the pitch stands alone. I hate to say it. I would love to see Pep Guardiola leave Manchester City. I'd quite like to see Manchester City go into free fall in the way that Chelsea did last season. But the idea that we're going to pull the rug out from under them because they didn't balance, because they were guilty of some off-the-field financial shenanigans, what do you call it? Most massive companies in the world are successful and have a team of lawyers that weigh up the risk and reward of bending the rules a little bit. But it's naive to think that just bending the rules in the financial fair play or profit and sustainability is enough in of itself. It isn't now. It never has been. And I think we all need to stop talking about it. But tomorrow we will find out if Nottingham Forest are further imperiled by basically making a very sound business decision. And so far, the clubs that have been punished for profit and sustainability are not the mega rich clubs winning everything. It's Everton and Nottingham Forest. If profit and sustainability is really about levelling the playing field, surely it should be Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, one of these clubs that gets punished. It's not going to be. And I think that we as Arsenal fans have a chance this season of beating Manchester City, no matter how much money they paid Roberto Mancini, no matter how uncooperative they were with the Premier League, no matter how much sponsorship money they have. Ultimately, you can only buy so many players. Perhaps we need to look at a wage cap. Perhaps we need to make sure that every team spends the same amount. Is anyone in favour of that? Big clubs have always had bigger incomes and been able to buy bigger players. It was ever thus. And I don't see that changing, nor do I need it to. We have the beauty of football on the pitch, where in 90 minutes, it doesn't matter if your team cost $1 billion to put together or 200 million or even less. In 90 minutes, if you get it right, if the tactics are right and the players are up for it, you can get through. Obviously, this is controversial. I appreciate that. I want to hear from you why I'm wrong. I'm sure you won't hesitate to tell me. But also, let's start this debate. I'm going to do a live on Tuesday. If you want to get involved and talk to me about it, then please let me know in the comments or email the email address I'll put in the link and we'll get you on the show and we'll talk through it. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just a football fan who is sick to the back teeth of talking about business. I didn't get into football to talk about finance, and I'm sure you didn't either. So, let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you want to come on a live debate on Tuesday. Until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.